Hey everyone, welcome back to Essential Oil TV. I thought would start calling it that. I'm having a lot of fun, honestly. So about, I guess it was about oh my gosh, it was about a year and a half ago now that I was invited to um, write a blog for another website, identifying, ranking more specifically essential oils for sleep. And I started to do it, but then the not the well, their qualifiers, the way they wanted me to structure this, um, was intense. It was a lot of work. Um, Not that that's a problem. I'm always investing myself in work, but what I was facing was that they were wanting me to identify oils, number one, rank them according to how they show up on trends, as far as how they're ranked. So on a website, say like Amazon, going over there and seeing how many got 5 stars and then using that way. And then I was supposed to also take into consideration the cost of the oil because they wanted to keep it low and affordable and most popular. Well, that doesn't go for me. That's not how I want to use or recommend oils because, well, as I said in my video yesterday, oils are chemicals, whether they're pure or adulterated. It doesn't make any difference. They're chemicals because that's what plant constituents are, and we've been studying plant constituents um, for hundreds of years. Um, Gosh, I was just reading about a terpene yesterday. Um, I can never it's a strange one. It's a strange name. It's leptospermone, or yeah, I'll write the word in the description box. But I was looking into that one. They identified that constituent in the 1920s. I think it was 1922 to be exact, but they were unable to isolate it and extract it until the 60s. Okay, but my point is that we've been looking at plant constituents for hundreds of years, and as I've talked about in other videos, and if you're new to me, hey, welcome, thanks for tuning in, and this will be the first time you've heard this. For those of you who've been with me, you've heard it. Thank you for being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you hanging out with me on this journey. So you've heard it, so we'll scoop past it quickly. But Merck, big pharmaceutical company, started out as an apothecary in Germany, and they were isolating alkaloids, more specifically the ones that are used to produce morphine and codeine and heroin. In fact, I shared it in a video not too long ago that they've actually, I mean, it's all documented, and their process is actually very similar to creating these drugs today. But again, the point is that we've been identifying plant compounds and extracting them, isolating and extracting them for hundreds of years. So when I say that, that's why I can't promote oils based on popularity and cost. I don't necessarily think they need to be out of this world expensive, but they do need to represent their purity. And if you're not going to be selling pure oils, then just drop the price. Let us all know without having to question whether, it's organic or it's really not, given the air quality that we have. Um, it's kind of like looking at a product and wanting to know if there's GMOs in it. We have to put non-GMO or no GMOs or something on the label. I say in this case of oils, lower your price so that we already know that it's an adulterated oil. And we'll just go with that. But regardless, they're chemicals. So that said, I didn't write the blog. I begged out. I had standards and I just wasn't going to do it. And so I compiled a book, an ebook, put it up on Amazon. And then after I released it, I wanted to put it into hard copy print, but it wasn't long enough. Well, it's because I had really just kind of kept it, kind of skeleton information, didn't get really into a lot of depth because these guys didn't want me to get into a lot of depth. So I started breaking the oils down a little bit further, um, talking about them a little bit more to create the length. And then last fall happened, where I was diagnosed with breast cancer and arthritis throughout my body. So that changed the game altogether. For one thing, I ended up taking medications, and I still am because of the fact that they left cancer. Um, and we're just watching it at this point. So I'm mixing meds, and which I was already cognizant of before, but now it really set in. And where I had gone from doing everything I could that I thought I was doing to prevent ill health in my body, all the while pursuing the stress mechanism. Now, I say that because in 2016, I created Breaking the Cycle of Disease Management. And it's a 3.5 hour course with a ton of material. And some of you actually did get involved with that and purchase that. So thank you. Um, that was the catalyst for exploring stress. And stress isn't a really highly sought after piece of information that anybody wants to look for, especially when it comes to stress relief. But at the same time, I was wanting to understand more about stress because as I was creating that class, I started learning a lot about the actions of the DNA, more so than I had ever seen before when I was working with and around the epigenome. So, eventually rolled into a program I called aromagenomics, and that came off the market last year again due to health reasons, my own health reasons. I couldn't maintain it and take care of myself. In the meantime, this just kept going. It's funny how things just play out, and so I, like I said, I stopped working with that so that I could devote my attention to what was going on with me. But then there was really this question in my mind, like, what the heck is actually going on? And so I started. What was interesting for me is it wasn't like I've always viewed health issues as connected, regardless of as distant as they may seem, like arthritis and breast cancer, right? Two very different tissues, so on. But there's something that's linking it, and I've seen this throughout my entire 30 years or more working in healthcare and wellness. So I went down that rabbit hole of exploring, and that's where I uncovered the initiative chemistry of the stress, the stress mechanism and the initializing chemistry that leads to all degeneration. And it's all the same. And I've been writing about it since then, throughout this year, and I've been talking about it here. So that added to my book really has taken it in a whole new direction because basically the book is epigenetics and um, epigenetics, oils, and sleep is what it's on. I don't have the full title just yet, but that's the basis of it. And so I've dove back into this revision and really wanting to explain sleep in a way that kind of illustrates what the whole thing is. And that's what brings me to this video today because I'm putting it in a book. It's tremendous. And I'm actually going to put a post here on Instagram shortly along the same lines, just to kind of give you a hint of what this is about. It's this extraordinary information. But through my research for this book, I found some organizations that, well, talk about melatonin when it comes to sleep. And you might go, well, we already knew that. Well, there's a few things about this interesting to me. So for years, I have been very big on, I don't believe in giving the body something it's designed to make. The only one that I can really go with would be vitamin D, just because, and it has a lot to do with what I'm about to say here, because of the cycles that we're in. We don't spend a great deal of time outside. Um, we a lot of products contain sunblock, even if we're not aware of it, like cosmetics. And then, of course, there is sunblock. So we're doing everything we can to block our skin from the sun. While there are food sources of vitamin D, that could be beneficial. So you might see somebody who eats a lot of fish and, a lot of fish and some and meat. You might see their vitamin D levels be higher than somebody like me who doesn't eat meat. Um, you can drink, you might, if you're somebody that consumes fortified foods, they're especially fortified with vitamin D, you're going to have a better vitamin D level, blood serum level, than you would if someone like me who doesn't consume that. So what I'm getting at is vitamin D is a hormone, and although I don't believe that we need to be taking these things that the body makes it, especially long term, I'm gonna go with vitamin D just because there's a number of reasons why. Taking it is one thing, we're not able to produce it as well, but really getting it transported into the vitamin D receptor is essential, and that was the crux of yesterday's video. And so that said, um, I'm just not a fan of doing any sort of, like I said, and so melatonin is one. It's a neurohormone, and yeah, we relate to it as for sleep. I've worked with a number of families with children living with autism, and of course that's one of the go-tos because these kiddos are having a hard time sleeping. And for years, I've told them, please don't give them a lot. If we can do oils for them, that would be better because at least the oils are working to support the hormonal system, and we're not telling the body not to make it. Because see, that's my theory is if you keep taking it, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but what you've done is you're sending a message to the body that you don't need to make it. Like, hey, you don't need to make melatonin here. So, what ends up happening is it changes the hormonal system. It just creates slight alterations. Well, if I don't have to make melatonin, then I got to do something over here. So you start to see higher levels of anxiety, and because you have more serotonin that's not being used, because serotonin, components of serotonin, the amino acids involved with the production of serotonin, COMT gene, this is all precursors for the biosynthesis of melatonin. However, if we take it, then we're kind of creating an alteration to that, and or continuing the alteration to that, if that's the case. So you might be thinking, well, if what am I supposed to do if my kiddo's not sleeping or I'm having trouble sleeping and melatonin, you're saying not to take melatonin. Well, I'll get there in a minute. The point that I'm trying to make here, I kind of took a long way to get there, is that these organizations were talking about melatonin, and it really shed some light. This is where an area that I need to go into and just dig around in melatonin, and this is the exciting thing. That is, melatonin is a neurohormone, okay, and it is obviously used to help regulate the circadian rhythm. It's found throughout nature. There's other specifics to it that I'm going to leave for the book, but the most profound component to this that I wanted to share here is that it is a counter to stress hormones. That's the word I would use. It counters the stress hormones. So what does that mean? And this actually deeply explains why we may have higher levels of melatonin during the day versus at night. This would explain why we are experiencing higher degrees of fatigue, crash, in the afternoon crash, narcolepsy, cataplexy. This would explain a lot of that. Yes, I've done videos and I've talked about it in my blogs as well, that there's a hormone in the liver to release, when the macrophages are increased, it slows down it inhibits the release of a particular hormone. No, it signals the release of a hormone out of the liver that actually blocks iron to protect the body stores, so that the potential microbes attacking it won't get our iron. So that could lead to fatigue. Okay, I did have talked about there's another hormone. Okay, so the one in the liver is the hepcidin. The orexins in the brain are also linked to narcolepsy and cataplexy. So, but this is all hormonally related. This is hypothalamus stuff going on here. This is hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. Now, that said, um, so yeah, there's hormonal factors in this. Okay, but keep in mind, macrophages are occurring during times of inflammation. Okay, orexins increase during times of inflammation. Okay, because orexins are related to our energy usage. This is what's contributing a lot to the obesity that we're seeing and diabetes and so forth. I mean, this is becoming all to make sense because, as I just mentioned, melatonin is in fact a counter to stress hormones. So when we are cranked, physically, mental is physically, mentally, emotionally, and then of course there's the external environment. So you got your internal environment screwing with you, you got your external environment screwing with you. When all of this is on a firing on all cylinders, the body releases melatonin. Not it's not Although you get sleepy, it has that effect because it also involves it's norepinephrine is also involved in the production of this. Okay, it's a signaling molecule to start the production of melatonin, which makes it a lot of sense. Um, but it's not because you're messed up, your body's messed up. It's not because your system's out of whack, your cycles are out. No, it's not. It's the fact that you're so damn cranked that the body is releasing melatonin to shut your ass down. Pardon my language, but that's just the way it is. It's to shut you down because melatonin throughout nature has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. That is the reason why it's elevated for sleep. It's to counter all of the inflammation. So when you find yourself, basically falling asleep at your desk, and it's going to be involved in insomnia. Absolutely. Sleep disturbances are huge. This is part of the reason why we have sleep disturbances, because the melatonin is being used during the day because it's supposed to be helping to restore and regenerate the body. But if we can't dial it down, then what you ultimately have is a stressed out body that the body is actually trying to rectify. Now, is that brilliant or what? I mean, to me, that's just amazing. And the interesting thing is, we are the only organism in the world that has the ability to go, wait a minute, and actually do some self regulation. But instead, we get pissed, we get annoyed, we get agitated, we get angry because we're tired, because we can't keep our energy levels up. And so we start doing all of these things to keep our energy levels up when in fact it's the stress. Because if the melatonin didn't kick on, we would probably implode because we are not taking care of ourselves. So the body's like, fine, I'll shut you down. I'll shut you down so that we can offer some protection. To me, it's amazing. So the question might be, well, what oils do I recommend? Well, I hesitate because it depends on what you got going on. You know, it depends on what your system, everything that's involved. Because as I mentioned earlier, everything is connected. The best, the best thing that you could do is to begin to work with oils that actually help lower that stress response. I mean, really help to the core lower that stress response, and that means at the DNA level. Um, but then again, there's some oils that, well, support methylation. That's a good one. Um, like your palmarosa. I'm trying to think of what else here that's safe. That can go with yeah, I just want to be careful. But I can start, Oils with geraniol in it would be very good for methylation. Okay. But again, not all oils with geraniol are safe to use with all medications. So you need to know what's going on there for you and how to make your best selection. But geraniol will support your methylation. Um, I'm trying to think here. Here's another one. This one comes to mind. So alpha pinene is another really good one because it actually helps with help the body regulate the use of acetylcholine, which is necessary in helping to deactivate that stress response. There's a number of oils that contain alpha pinene, um, frankincense being one of them, cypress being another one, black spruce being another one, rosemary being another one. So, I mean, alpha pinene is not exactly an unfamiliar constituent, but it goes back to what I was saying yesterday about ingesting. Alpha pinene is actually hazardous. Um, I'm, I'm trying to, there's, I mean, this website is just, you can, it's chemicals because, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, they've been isolating these chemicals for hundreds of years. And so they've been studying them. And yes, we're talking about, when they're looking at this, they're talking about the single constituent. They're looking at it as, you know, larger amounts than you would find in a single drop of an essential oil. But nonetheless, it's important to remember when you start talking about ingesting these oils. Reactivity alert, it's highly flammable. It doesn't mix with water. We already knew that one with lipophilic chemicals, right? Health hazard, harmful if swallowed, inhaled, or absorbed through the skin. So this comes back to not only do you not want to ingest it, you don't want to be, mega dosing on your oils. Again, back to less is more. So if you're making your own blends, you don't want to have a blend high in alpha pinene, and you definitely don't want to be putting it in your mouth because one more time, it's another hazardous chemical. And again, a single drop may not be bad, but if you're taking an oil and you're going like this and shaking it up, or you're taking capsules full of them, and I don't know how many drops fit into a capsule. And if you're taking a handful of capsules because somehow or another we have it in our head that essential oils are plants and they're natural, they're safe. It's not about the purity. Plant chemicals are not safe in high dosages. Okay, this is the reason why we developed homeopathy to begin with. So I'm just saying. So those are a few ideas. So the bottom line is to being able to support the hormonal system and helping to regulate melatonin. Now, do I suggest taking melatonin if you're really, really whacked and having a hard time sleeping at night? You can, but I've actually helped people sleep without using melatonin and allowing their melatonin levels in their hormonal system to find their way back to a more beneficial rhythm, put it that way. So I'm not going to make any recommendations on oils with that, just because, again, it's depending on what you've got going on, and at the same time is, yeah, it depends on what you got going on. Um, and I'm sorry because I know people want answers, but the fact is that the oils are, that's where medicine comes from, and learning how to use them more effectively is my goal, is to teach people how to use them more effectively. And what this whole thing with melatonin is amazing. I mean, it really does speak of how this stress mechanism is just, it's it's turning our lives upside down, literally turning our systems upside down, which is the reason why you're seeing such a rise in numbers of people. It's not an age related thing. I heard something last night in a commercial. They say sleep issues that increase when you get with aging, right? Because melatonin levels drop. Let me say this: testosterone doesn't naturally drop, melatonin doesn't naturally drop. These things diminish, or their cycles are different because of the degree of stress that we're experiencing. When you can't get an erection, you can't build muscle tissue, when you can't sleep, this is, and it's not about not, it may not be, you may sleep all night, but if you have sleep apnea, okay, um, that's a sleep disturbance. So learn about what a sleep disturbance is. I don't think everybody's, reporting that they have such sleep issues. We just don't necessarily talk about it, but sleep hygiene is critical. Oh, this is the other one I overheard last night. Aging lessens our immunity. Stress lessens our immunity because stress, internal, external, environmental stress weakens and breaks the immune system because it's impacting nitric oxide synthase, which in turn completely turns our hormonal system upside down. Hence the reason why melatonin is being produced more during the day than it is at night. Okay, so aging doesn't lessen melatonin levels, testosterone levels, immunity. The environment does, and we have absolute control. We may not be able to control the external, but we have all the control we need over the internal, and it starts right here. I've said it before, and I will continue to say that. This may not be the only answer, but it is a definitely the strongest one you have to start with. Okay, so you guys take care. Thanks for sticking with me, and I will talk with you later.